it's town hall tonight in Otter Creek, and the planet wants to know who's gonna get Don the Con's seat. We all know it won't be John Crook. I've got a copy of the town hall agenda right here. George and Deanna will definitely be there, as they're residents of Otter Creek. But I'm not. I'm prepping for court with Lynette and Crook here in Ohio, which George will be flying immediately afterwards back to Ohio. And everybody wants to know what's on the agenda. Well, that open seat is on the agenda, but the planet has even more questions. Vault of BS wants to know, did Don the Con acquire the fire truck in a public auction, or was he able to make a closed-door deal on it? Well, the answer is honestly both. So what happened is, once a town or any public municipality has to actually rid themselves of items, the way to do that legally is through public auction. So what they did was a closed bid public auction, except who was the town clerk at that time? That's right, Rosemary Severino. And they posted it on Craigslist, and they posted it other places in the local paper. But somehow Don the Con won the closed bid for $500 on this fire truck, when at that time that fire truck was worth so much more. Public auction, closed door deal? I think you can say yes, because technically they met the requirements of posting a closed bid auction. Rosemary had everyone's bids. How does the town know if Don the Con actually had the highest bid? That's called nepotism. That's illegal. You can't have Don the Con on the city council, the town council, and then Rosemary as the clerk, and then bids coming in, and it just so happens that Rosemary says, well, Don the Con, good old Donald the Conald, is the wiener. User, lots of letters and lots of numbers, wants to know, but what if he was doing it on his personal phone? This is in regards to Don the Con actually recording meetings and then leaving meetings. If Don the Con or any other member that serves on the council is using anything personal for town hall business, that becomes the property of town hall. Every text they send. So for example, Russ the Suss's mayor sends a text to Richard, the maintenance man. All of a sudden that becomes public information. But these people are even more foolish than that. You've got Rosemary running no less than 3 different businesses from town hall on town hall equipment, not personal, on town hall equipment at the residents' expense. Now, if Don the Con comes in with his own cell phone and he's recording and he's on the council, that recording is now property of the town, and it can be information requested immediately. And it must be there for the archives for any information request. Same goes for Russ the Suss. But Don the Con is no longer on the council. So if he shows up tonight and he's recording on his personal cell phone, it's his property. He's not acting in the aspect as a public servant, and therefore it's not public property, it's private property. He is now a private citizen. The same goes with Russ the Suss. Both of them have broken this statute. Both of them have broken this law. Both Russ the Suss, Don the Con, continue to incriminate themselves. And Russ the Suss is under a huge investigation. Glenn Sibbett wants to know, I thought you withdrew the case against the town. Well, Glenn, that's not exactly what happened. I was in a lawsuit with the town, first and foremost for them breaking public record requests. That was Russ the Suss, that was Mary, and that was Attorney Worm. All 3 of them, all responsible. Now, keep in mind, Madam Mayor Therese came in. And Madam Mayor Therese started to turn things around. And Belinda came in as town clerk. Drastically, these women turned things around with Deanna and the help of others. And so, what I did when the town approached me through the lawyer that you see in the current town hall meetings, Megan, they approached me, they asked me to settle for attorney fees, which at the beginning, I said no. And then, once I learned who Craig DeThomasis is, going to my first hearing with Craig DeThomasis and then understanding that Craig DeThomasis would be the presiding or residing judge over this case with Otter Creek, I immediately said, yes, I will settle. I had a feeling I probably wasn't going to get anywhere with Craig DeThomasis until he's debenched for good. So settle, it's definitely not a withdrawal. They asked me to settle for attorney fees. I settled for attorney fees. The town paid me for all my attorney fees for what Russell, Mary, and Attorney Warm did illegally. And therefore, I was reimbursed. And then what I was going to do was actually give all that money back to the town when Madam Mayor was still the mayor, except then Form 6 came in. And then Madam Mayor resigned. And then Russ the Sus and Don the Con were still there. And I had no faith in what the town was going to do with these funds. So I wanted to designate it, whether it be for the park, whether it be for the people, whether it be, you name it. But now I'm in a position where those funds, I don't feel comfortable designating them back to the town because now they all need to be designated for the town in the fight against corruption and the fight against defamation and extortion and many other issues with Lynette and Crook. So now what I'm doing is utilizing those funds to fight in federal court. Robin LaRosa wants to talk about this grant money from the federal government, which was designated towards fiber optic. But now they have the community center or sidewalks. And Robin says, hey, Jeremy, listen, the town can always get the right of way for the sidewalks with eminent domain. Even if you don't want to sell, Robin, you obviously have not been watching or you are not comprehending what you have watched on What the Hales. You've already heard it. It's been shown so many times. No, they can't. So the reality is, as you've already seen it, to get the sidewalk project, they have to get every resident in Otter Creek to agree to sell. And I'm telling you, I'm not selling any portions of my property to the town for sidewalks. As a matter of fact, I want people away from my property, not give them greater access to it. And you may be thinking, well, Jeremy, that's kind of bold and rude. Really? It's Otter Creek. These individuals that are in Otter Creek are methed up. They have no driver's license because they are methed up. They're riding on bikes because they are methed up. You want to see an example? Here's somebody who just got arrested for assault again. His name is Christian, and he's not a Christian. This is Christian Glidewell, who has been in jail so many times, and this is him casing the schoolhouse. RV There Yet Meemaw says, Jeremy, wouldn't you be responsible for the upkeep of the sidewalks if the city actually, or the town, put them in? And yeah, the answer is yes. Every resident would be responsible for the upkeep of the sidewalks. You've seen how some of the residents don't upkeep their home. Would you truly trust them to upkeep sidewalks for the benefit of all of the residents? I don't see that happening anytime soon, which is why they're pursuing the community center. Now, I have my concerns about the community center as well. I'm a businessman. I see things in dollars and cents with this community center. I see lots of money given, and then I see tons of expenses, but no income. And therefore, I've seen this time and time again. What happens with nonprofits all the time is somebody comes and says, hey, here's $1 million, build a building. And the nonprofit goes, praise the Lord, we got $1 million. They build the building and then they have no money to maintain the building. And the nonprofit goes bankrupt and belly up because $1 million was gifted. This happens nonstop in today's world. Nonstop. You think you're so blessed because you got a free gift, but that free gift isn't free. It comes with tremendous amount of expenses with it, and it literally can put a corporation, an organization, even a town under. Sassy Sally wants to know, Jeremy, isn't it illegal to bet, to gamble during a board meeting? Well, Sally, if it's not illegal, there's no doubt it's immoral. And it's definitely unethical. Now, keep in mind, every single one of these council members has to go to ethics training. There's actually an ethics committee in Florida, out of Tallahassee. They're the ones that are doing a deep dive investigation on Russ the Sus. And so, Don the Con, in my research and all of the public information I've received, Don the Con has been sitting on this council for well over 25 years. Do you think any ethics training has helped him at all at this point? I can see absolutely nothing. And then you would think that the members of the town, Otter Creek, would go, this guy's unethical. We don't want him representing us. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Russ the Sus. Look at all the garbage that these people know about him. And they won't hesitate to tell you either. And so you would think that they would go, we need somebody else on that council. The problem is nobody wants to be on the council. So what that leaves is unethical individuals who want to make gambling bets during town hall meetings, and then they lose horribly and they don't pay up.
I'll bet you $50 it'll pass any test you put it through.
Dan Apcola says, I haven't figured out why none of these residents, the permanent residents, have started a petition to have unincorporating put on the ballot, or at least put in front of the council. I understand the history, but the past few years prove they don't care even before you got there. Talking about me. They don't care even before you got there, Jeremy. I don't understand it either. I've literally have done the math for them. What happens if they unincorporate? Taxes go down, benefits go up. Who doesn't want that in their life? You want to save money and get more for the money that you're spending, right? That's what literally happens if we unincorporate. We save money and we get more services for our money. This is why people coupon. This is why people look for deals. This is why people shop around. You get it. I get it. I don't understand why the residents don't get it. I mean, there's that fear of change, right? There's always, when there's a change on the horizon, there's always those people that will fight that change. Now, I have become a change agent. I realize that. God's wired me to become a catalyst for change. And I now know that about myself. That's taken me many years to figure that out. But there was even a time when I didn't want to change. I remember when I started my cassette tape collection, and these things, these shiny discs, these orbs came out called CDs. Oh, I was not going to change. I swore I would never, ever, ever purchase a CD. Except then they stopped making cassette tapes. And guess what I had to do? I had to purchase CDs. And now we don't even use CDs anymore. I mean, do you realize there's kids growing up that they don't even know what a CD is? All they do is download the music. They stream it up, stream it down. And who knows in another 10 years what it's going to be. Change is inevitable. It is going to happen. So if you're not changing, you're dead. That's the only thing you can be. If growth isn't happening, that means you're dead. And somehow, some way, death takes place. And that means both physically for our human bodies and for entities such as the town of Otter Creek. So why aren't the people going out and trying to get the unincorporation? Well, Gail has already stated multiple times she'll get it. She'll go door to door. She'll go and get them all to sign a petition. Then it goes before the council. Council then has to put it on the ballot. Then the people actually vote. Russ has tried it before because he wasn't in charge anymore. The people booted him out. And this is the cycle of Russ's tenure and terrorism within the town of Otter Creek. Nobody wants the job. Russell gets the job. They get sick and tired of Russell and all of his corruption. They boot him out. Somebody else comes in, fixes it, and then they're tired of it. They never wanted to do it in the first place. They got in because of what Russ was doing. Russ then gets back on the ballot. There is nobody else to vote. Russ gets back in the job. They boot him out again because of the corruption. So it's going to take the actual town coming together to realize dollars and cents. I mean, I don't know how to put it any more clear for people. You're going to pay less in taxes. You're going to receive more services because the county has to provide them. The services that we are not getting right now because the town is legally supposed to provide them but can't afford to provide them. So the only way the town can provide them is if they raise taxes. The county can't raise taxes on us if we unincorporate. The tax rate is the tax rate as it is for everybody else. So why? David wants to know what's going to happen to the community center when Otter Creek can no longer afford it. Well, that's a really good question, David, because we know what has to happen with a town, a city, a state, federal government. It's surplus. It has to go to auction. So if the town of Otter Creek can no longer afford the expenses, that piece of property will have to be auctioned off. But here's the catch. The grant money, they have to pay for it so many years. I don't remember if it's 5 years, 10 years. I don't remember the clause in the grant, okay? Maybe some of you do. I don't at this point in time. But if they do anything with it under a certain amount of years, they owe that $1 million back to the government. So this is a catch-22. Build it, hope and pray you can pay for the expenses. If you can't, it has to go up their auction. You have to give all the money back, all of it. Even if you go, well, we don't have it. Even if the building goes up for auction and they, let's say, I think they had $800,000 to put into it. I was rounding up at $1 million. They do not have $1 million. Roughly $800,000, which will get you very little in regards to a commercial building today. It's going to be a very, very small building, especially because it has to be hurricane proof as well because of where we are in Florida. And so they don't have the money. And now it goes up for auction, and let's say it sells and I pay for it, and let's say I get it for $200,000 because nobody else in town wants it or can afford it. Let's just say I get it for $100,000 because let's say it goes up for auction. I put up a $100,000 bid. Nobody else can afford it. I just got it for $100,000. The town of Otter Creek, the residents, now have to come up with all the rest of the money to pay back the grant. That's pretty scary. Seriously, that's pretty scary for those residents. So they have to make it work. Somehow, some way, I don't know how they're going to do it, but they have to make it work. That's why I asked in the meetings, can a portion of the funds be set aside for reoccurring expenses? In other words, what we do is we say, if we got 800,000, we go, we're going to put 600,000 into a building. We're going to set 200,000 aside into an account, and that account will then create income, and we're going to use that money to pay for the expenses. And the grant doesn't allow it. Normally, that's what a wise business person would do, set aside money for the actual expenses, the yearly expenses. Once it's built, it starts to depreciate, expenses kick in, hopefully you're making money. I don't know how they're going to do it. What I do know is I don't see a lot of business discussion about it, but I get this feeling that I'm the only one that really thinks about numbers and really thinks about what this could possibly do beneficiary-wise for the residents, which so far, what? And what it could do negatively for the residents, which it could kill them financially. I don't see any benefit right now. They can't hold town hall meetings there because they already have a town hall. That's not what it's for. So what do you think they're going to do? Play bingo? The people already don't come out. No, it is not going to be rented for weddings. No fool in their right mind is going to come to Otter Creek and get married. Oh, wait. Maybe Lynette. Maybe Lynette will marry husband number 8 at the community center. Hey, she'll probably marry herself. Karen Parkins wants to know, does this give Russ the Sus an opportunity to get back on the council? What Karen's referring to is this open seat that is going to be discussed during tonight's town council. So what happens in this process, now that there's an open seat, people put in a letter of interest. So can Russ the Sus put in a letter of interest? And the answer is absolutely. I could even put in a letter of interest, even though I am not a permanent resident of Otter Creek. There's nothing that says anybody can't put in a letter of interest, okay? Now, what the council is going to do, if they get my letter of interest, they're going to go, Well, Jeremy's not a permanent resident, therefore he can't technically serve on this council, and he doesn't meet the requirements. They throw it out. But nothing stops me from putting in a letter of interest, and Russ the Sus can put in a letter of interest. But here's the challenge he's going to have. These are the individuals that are sick and tired of his corruption, that are sick and tired of the horrific things he's done to the residents, to the people. And so that current council gets to vote on whether they want to place him in that open seat. So Don the Con can put in his letter of interest. We've already seen what's going to happen if Don the Con puts in his letter of interest. They already voted 3-1. Laura Mott was the only one who said, let's keep Don the Con in. And the other 3 said, nope, he's out. We're not going to put up with this childishness. And so if Don the Con puts in a letter of interest, we already know it's going to be a 3-1. He's out. If Russ the Sus puts in a letter of interest, we already know it's probably going to be a 3-1. I do believe that Laura Mott would vote for Russ the Sus. And if she did, that would tell us exactly who she really is. She's yet to prove that she's ready to do something actually valuable for the residents of Otter Creek. I think he would be booted to the wayside as well. Now, I happen to know that Rex, who now owns Shady Oaks Campground, he's the new owner, and he's got his family there, which is one of the things we need. We don't need Don the Cons, who's out doing the devil's lettuce. And if you do it, great, that's you. But we don't need you in a meeting with the devil's lettuce and no comprehension of what's going on and continuing to create chaos, okay? You don't need a Don the Con in there. You need a family man in there who wants to better the town for families to come in, because that's the only way it's going to grow. So I know Rex put in his letter of interest. 2 reasons. Number 1, I texted him. I said, Rex, put in your letter of interest. Form 6 is gone. He said, I'm going to. So I already know that, but I also know that there was another resident in Town Hall as he was putting in his letter of interest, and that resident shared with me, hey, Rex just put in his letter of interest. Remember, small town, they all talk. Rex never confirmed with me, but somebody else confirmed that Rex was there submitting his letter of interest. I truly believe that Rex, being a new resident with a business and a family, understands what this town needs. You got to have business if you're going to generate income. And you've got to have income to better the town if you want to draw families in. I believe that Rex will be the seated individual on that spot, not Russ the Sus. But I also don't know if anyone else put in their letter of interest. George and I were actually talking that I was going to submit a letter of interest just to see what they would do with it. But then it was, let's not create any waves or any problems. We already know I don't qualify. So, and I would have loved if Deanna would have, or if any other individual such as Darlene, Joyce. I know Darlene is at Mount St. Helens right now, so she's probably not even going to be there for the Tuesday meeting, which is tonight. And then, you know, it's tough. It's very, very tough to get anybody to actually submit and work on this council, because nobody wants the chaos of it in their life. Concerned citizen wants to know, when will you have a drive around town and video everything, of course, without doxing anyone? Well, that's not exactly what we do. So that's not exactly how YouTube works. So the answer is probably never. Now, we've shown different areas around town. You've seen Town Hall. You've seen the driveway to Russ the Sus. You've seen portions of the campground. You've seen the property we've owned. You've seen Turd Purgatory. It's just not our thing to go around and drive. And that's not very successful on YouTube. Now, we're not filming this for YouTube. We're filming this for accountability purposes. We much rather be treasure hunting and doing our thing that way than driving around town. And there's not much to see in town as it is anyway. Literally, it's less than a square mile. I probably have, if not the largest portion of property in town, than one of the top biggest portions of property within the actual town radius. So in reality, you've seen one of the biggest percentages of the town as it is anyway when you watch What the Hales. Therian Lola says, Jeremy, wouldn't it save you to not have to pay state tax in Ohio? And what they are referring to, if I were to move my residency to Florida, and if I were to move my business to Florida, I would save tremendously in taxes. And that's one of the reasons why so many people actually do move to Florida. It's for tax incentives. But you can't beat family incentives. So this is what I mean by that. While I can save tens of thousands of dollars, and potentially, I don't know, but potentially, well, I won't even go there. Let's just say I could save a lot of money. It's not worth it to take my state residency to Florida when my kids' residency is in Ohio. And so you can't give me any incentive that's going to say, hey, take your residency from Ohio, transfer it to Florida, you'll save money. I'll go, no. My kids' residency are in Ohio. I'm going to remain resident of Ohio while my kids are residents of Ohio. Now, if they move on and they say, well, maybe my oldest, who's doing phenomenal, owns her own home. She's a teacher. She loves what she's doing. And she goes, well, I want to go overseas and I want to do missions work. And I want to teach English as a second language. And then my other, let's say he's now a full-time video game champion. And then my youngest, if she all of a sudden goes, you know what? I'm moving to Florida. I'm first going to try and talk her out of it. But there could be an appropriate time where I would transition my residency, but I cannot, in good conscience, do that just because family ties, my kids. That's it. You can't give me any amount of money that is going to make me break that or give me an incentive for that. And so that family tie is going to be way stronger than any tax incentives. Hagiji says, hey, Jeremy, once all of this ridiculousness is behind you, all the lawsuits, the judge, the stalking neighbors, would you get to a point where you build a beautiful home on the ranch with good water and etc.? Well, that was the original plan. And I actually already have utilities. I paid for utilities for the expansion of the ranch to build a dream home. And first part of that is a 10-acre lake filled with alligators. Yep, I want gators on the ranch. And the 10-acre lake would be right up by Brian and Tina's. I'm sure that's going to make them extremely thrilled and happy. And then the dream home would actually have a deck that comes straight down to the lake. You could call it a pond as well. And the flat platforms where the gators would come up and actually sun. Now, many people are scared of gators. Don't be scared of gators. Gators are scared of you. Be scared of crocodiles. Those things are life-threatening. The gators, they're scared of you. We already have gators on the property. So I'd love to put in a body of water where gators felt safe to actually be, and they could sunbathe, and I could have the true Florida experience. And I already have utilities prepped. I've already paid for that in preparation of all of that for the expansion. But we have a couple of different issues. Number one, you've already nailed it. Water. Water is a major issue. Now, with the plan to bring water from Bronson and get clean water through Otter Creek, even though the real plan is to go to Cedar Key, it's just Otter Creek's in the way, so they're going to tap us in anyway. And then with the future plan to take sewage away as well, so now you don't need septic. Now you have actually clean water from Bronson. Those are definite benefits, right? But what's the other hindrance? The other hindrance is Russ the Sus, Don the Con. The other hindrance are stalkers across the street. You've got methed up individuals. And so at this point right now, I've put a hold on that plan. Number one, I've got these huge legal bills. Astronomical, right? Nobody in a million years ever thought, nobody could have predicted that it would ever gone this way, that Judge Grudge would have cost me this much money. And it's really what he has done. Ohio, I have 5,000 and three. I have less than $10,000 of those legal bills are Ohio. Less than 10 grand. 170 is in, over 170 is in Florida. Okay. Nobody could have predicted this. I get that. But at the same time, everything's on hold to see what's really going to happen in Otter Creek anyway. So is Zim going to maintain mayorship? And that has to be voted on every year. If so, I'd feel more comfortable moving forward. If Russ the Sus gets back in, oh, no to the no. Don the Con. So you've got this whole leadership aspect. You've got quality of water and sewage aspect. You've got stalkers. This is, even though I prepped with utilities, I've already paid, this is not the time. And there will be a time. And it may not be for me. It may be future generations. But now is definitely not the time. Deb Kirk wants to know, do you think Lynette will try and get on the council? What about Russ the Sus? So we already touched on Russ the Sus, so let's touch on Lynette. Here's what we know about Lynette. Lynette has already ran for council, making her a public figure, okay? Lynette has clearly stated in Florida court to Craig DeThomasis that she's going to run again. Lynette even filed. She filed, it's hilarious. She filed supplemental petition paperwork asking for legal advice from Judge Craig DeThomasis whether she could run for town council under the current civil protection orders that I have against her and George has against her. And then Judge Craig DeThomasis said, I can't give you legal advice, even though he's been doing it for months. Little odd, don't you think? So, do I think she will attempt? I think they are still Russ the Sus, Don the Con. Remember, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. These individuals hated each other. Lynette and Crook attacked all of them as they first came into Otter Creek. Now, when I exposed who they really are, what they're really doing, now Russ the Sus and Don the Con need Lynette and Crook. Good luck getting help from Crook in jail. But this is the reality. She shows up. I don't have to leave. George doesn't have to leave. She has to leave. Now, you could say, Jeremy, you do have to leave. You have a temporary injunction on you. Yeah, I do have a temporary injunction on me. So she can't be within 500 feet. Now, hold a second. The state of Florida has not held her or Crook accountable for any time they have actually broken the injunction, the civil protection order. So do you think they're going to arrest me and file charges against me for breaking the temporary injunction? I already know what you're thinking. Of course they are. They're corrupt as Florida. Yeah, they probably will. She has to leave. I come straight back in. She cannot serve at that town council with me and George there. Period. That was for, you know. Period. Jack's mom wants to know, did Russ the Sus file his Form 6 paperwork in time to avoid fines and penalties? That's a really good question. I don't know. Now, my gut instinct tells me no. And remember, a judge actually put an injunction on Form 6, which put everything on hold. Everything is on pause. It doesn't mean it's going to go away forever. So if this injunction or this hold doesn't go permanent, he's busted if he didn't. He's looking at upwards of $20,000 fines per incident. And then what happens is it compounds on a daily basis. So from the very first day, July 1st, I believe, is when he had to have all his paperwork in. If he doesn't, he gets a fine. And then every day it accumulates. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars that he doesn't have. So, did he do it? We don't see anything filed yet. This temporary hold gets him out of it. But if this temporary hold doesn't hold permanent, he is screwed. Blue Eyes 22 has two questions, if she may. Who'd you buy the schoolhouse from, and what's the name of the purple plant behind you? Okay, so first of all, let's tackle the purple plant. That's a Japanese maple, okay? And it's beautiful. I love Japanese maples. But then again, obviously I have a thing for Asians. Oh, wait, for the last time. She's not Asian. Okay. And then, who did I buy a schoolhouse from? Well, there's a whole playlist, all of Otter Creek, that you can find all that information out from. But we bought that from the ARC. So the school district gave it and gifted it to the ARC. And then the ARC, which is for, how do they say it now appropriately? Yeah, I don't want to say, they just call it the ARC. So mentally challenged, okay? And it's purpose and skill set training and education for the mentally challenged. So it could be cooking, it could be, learning how to fill out checks, And it got to a point where their clients could no longer safely be in that building. Well, I can safely be in that building, no problem whatsoever. The safety issues they had is their heat and the AC went completely out. They also had flooring issues in a couple of the rooms, which they just closed off. It's 10,000 square foot, and I've actually fixed those flooring issues, but I'm going to fix all of the floors. This building, or at least a portion of the building, has been there for almost 100 years. We're coming up on a 100-year anniversary, and I want to make sure it's still there 100 years later down the line when I'm well gone. And so I'm just fixing everything, and I'm bringing it and restoring it back to its original beauty. Let's dig into the actual meeting for tonight, okay? Let's see what's happening here. So we've got Town of Otter Creek, and we've got council meeting July 16th. We all know starts at 7 p.m. We all get that now, all right? All right, what's going to happen? We've got Mayor, which is Mayor Zim. I know some of you are thinking, Vice Mayor Zim. It was Madam Mayor Therese. Well, no more. It's Mayor Zim. And we've got the call to order. Look at this. We have prayer is back. Now, I'm not joking. I'm a little shocked because they took prayer out and now prayer is back in. Here, I'm going to highlight it for you. And frankly, I think very, very appropriate because the town of Otter Creek absolutely needs it. So there you have prayer is actually back in on the agenda. Pledge, roll call. We've got approval of the agenda for the July 2024 meeting. So before they start the meeting, but then they have to approve the agenda, what they're going to discuss during the meeting. So they do that. And that's for legality reasons, for the minutes, if they ever need anything to go to the bank. There's a lot of different things that could cover. So they're going to approve the agenda. Or they could also say, well, I want to adjust the agenda, and this would be the appropriate time to do that for what they are going to discuss. Approval of the minutes from June 18th, which was last month's meeting, where Don the Con was booted. And if approved, as submitted, Mayor will sign one copy for public record, as you can see right there. Okay. And then we go on. Special guest Powell and Jones to give findings on the 2022-2023 audit. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Powell and Jones was part of all of the grant funding, right? I think we've seen some of this already. Or was Powell and Jones the CPA firm? You know what? Powell and Jones is the certified accountants. And they have to go through all the books. That's who Powell, this isn't grant. This is for the books. All right. So this is actually for the books, which the very first time that we have actually had all of our audit information in as a town on time was through Belinda. Not Mary, not Rosemary, Belinda, who's on top of it and is getting this job done and frankly is doing it, I would guess, under 10 hours a week. That's how, I'm not saying it's extremely simple, but for somebody such as Belinda and her caliber, she could do this stuff in her sleep, as some of you could as well. It's just the reality. It's a small town, and Rosemary couldn't get it done with 2 extra helpers doing absolutely nothing, and they have nothing to show for it. It's mind-boggling to me. All right, old business is on the schedule as well, and you can see the festival, special events, and reading the resolution. So I'm guessing there's going to be a resolution specifically for the festival and the events. Now remember, there's statutes, laws, you got resolutions, ordinances, things along those lines. So this would be a special resolution for just the town of Otter Creek. Maybe it's going to state what they want to accomplish, how they're going to accomplish, who's responsible, and they're going to make it as professional as possible. I'm guessing. I have no idea. I'm not going to know until you guys know when we actually see the meeting together. But the festival seems to be going on. Now, I know what your biggest question is, and it is mine as well. Security. Security. That's huge. And George and I have pulled further back. We've isolated ourselves even more because of daily unalive threats, which we've received from the very beginning of YouTube. All right. So if you want to be a full-time YouTuber, you got to have thick skin. You have to. And we get everything from I want to unalive you to I want to come not to see you, but all over your face. And it's typically people saying it to me. Believe it or not, man, some of the fellas love me. Crook. There's one. All right, the next thing, I know you're saying, Jeremy, are you going to be asking about security of Laura Mott, who's now in charge of security and safety? There better be some questions asked, and I'm hoping there's some serious answers, because Otter Creek isn't safe right now. You want visitors to come in, you want them to park their cars knowing that there are meth heads all over, knowing that Lynette and Crook are there, knowing the insanity that follows these people. They call their supporters, which really aren't even friends or supporters. They just want to hate what the hails. Why? Because they're miserable in their own lives, and the only way that they feel better is to make other people miserable. That's what they do. And so those are serious issues. They have to be addressed if there's going to be an event like this. And then there's the reminder of ethics training. Remember, we talked about ethics already? Every single council member has to go and be a part of ethics. It looks like it's going to be held in Cross City. Then we're going to get into new business. Oh, this is where it's going to get good. Choosing the candidate for the vacant seat by letter of interest. There you have it. Now, I only know of one individual that has put in their letter of interest. That would be Rex. That's all that's been shared with me. And that was because I was encouraging Rex, and then another individual saw Rex and said, hey, what are you doing? He said, I'm putting in my letter of interest. Rex didn't even text me back and say, hey, I did it. But so I don't know if other individuals did. And this is going to be the area of contention. If Lynette did, if Russ did, if Don did, boy, come on. Do you think Don did? I got a feeling Don the Con probably did. But I also know that he never took George up on her offer to help him type that letter of interest, which is odd because he loved him some George. He don't know. Anyways, department reports. All right. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Safety deposit box approval and who will be the signer for the safety deposit box. Apparently, Otter Creek has a safety deposit box. I used to have a safety deposit box as well. And then I went, wow, this is really, for the $100+ I'm paying a year for the safety deposit box, it really doesn't do me very well when I'm going back and forth. And now I just have Hales headquarters, which is the safety deposit box. But the town, I could understand why they would not want to leave things within town hall, especially with some of the residents. Crook, Lynette. All right. Department reports. We got administration. That's going to be Belinda. Remember, Belinda's really running the show. And the mayor title is kind of just a figurehead. Like if you go overseas, you got the prime minister really running the show, and the king and queen are kind of the figurehead. Okay. That's not to say that Mayor Zim isn't involved. He's very much so involved. But it's Belinda really doing the day-to-day and making things work. You got public safety. Look at this. Laura Mott. Yep. Right there, public safety with Laura Mott. All right. Hope she's got a lot to share for the festival. Maintenance is going to be Richard. And then water will be Mayor Zim. And then there's announcements as well. And I know you're wondering, is the water clean yet? No, not yet. Are the new filters hooked up yet? Still not yet. Last I talked with Mayor Zim, which is when I was at the last meeting that I actually was able to attend, what was happening is as soon as they got hooked up, he was going to invite the town in and show exactly what's going on because of transparency. That's what these people need, complete and total transparency. But to my knowledge, they have not been hooked up yet. The water is still not clean. And even then, with those filters, it gets it cleaner, but I would never drink the water. And then we've got announcements is the next portion here. Announcements. What a wonderful way to die. Ba-dum. Some of you have heard that song. Children's Food Table every other Friday. And we know Lynette will be there for sure. And then all the rotten food, because she takes more than she actually needs, will be dumped illegally on somebody else's property. That irks me. That really irks me. For somebody to claim they don't know where their next meal is coming, and then they have all this rotten food. And then they put out a blessing box. And then they point firearms at people who go to the blessing box. You're begging people to come in. and then you're pointing firearms at them. You might say I get a little upset, and rightfully so. All right, we also have sign up for the email water bills, which I'm already signed up for that. All my water bills come through email, and we're going to be able to pay online really soon. I'm looking forward to that. Wakasasa. I just love saying it. Waka, 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 waka. Wakasasa Water and Wastewater Cooperative meeting is July 24th at 1 p.m. Rescheduled due to conflict from the August 21st date. Meeting scheduled at 1 p.m. Location in Bronson. It's going to be in Bronson. And now we have public participation. And let's see what we have here. Public participation. Members of the public have 3 minutes to speak to the council on any one topic. The topic needs to pertain to the town and needs to be respectful with no foul language. And I've encouraged them, and I'm going to do it again publicly. They cannot keep your language or not permit your language that is constitutionally protected. And if I were them, I would talk with Heather and I would immediately take these off the agenda. So when they say the topic needs to pertain to the town and needs to be respectful with no foul language, wrong. This has already been covered so many cases in the Supreme Court. I can be as disrespectful as I want to Laura Mott or to any of the others. I could be extremely disrespectful to Laura Mott as long as I'm not inciting violence, hate speech, which hate speech in this culture is very different than what legal hate speech is. You see what I'm saying? I can get up there and I can call her a B. And they cannot stop me. And if they did, they would be under a tremendous amount of liability. They're going to get sued. Now, are the residents of Otter Creek going to sue them if they try and stop them? That's per basis. But why would you want the liability? Nobody wants that liability. This is not legal. I've already told them it's not legal, and I think that should be wiped completely and totally off. And then it goes on to say the public is encouraged to visit Town Hall during the scheduled business hours, to leave comments in the drop box at Town Hall anytime, to be reviewed, addressed, and addressed at the next agenda if necessary. And then we have the adjournment. The biggest question, who's going to get that seat?